Hello there. Seeing Liquid win TA13 made me really inspired, and I'm sure a lot of other people, maybe even you, have gotten your yearly dose of autumn dota inspiration. So let's talk about the first step into perhaps even playing with some pros, Immortal. I think whether it's worth it for you specifically can be decided easiest by looking at the pros and cons of grinding to the highest rank in Dota. First of all, as I'm sure anyone who has reached Immortal will tell you, there is an internal satisfaction that you get, just a rush of dopamine. Like, there are few things that I've experienced that are so nice as winning that final game, getting to Immortal. You also get this cool medal, and I have to admit, like, it's super superficial and really doesn't matter in reality, but it feels really good to have that cool big medal on your profile. If we're gonna talk a bit deeper about it, I think one of my biggest motivators to reaching Immortal and grinding for it was to get some sort of closure. I couldn't feel happy taking a break or like stopping Dota when I'm divine or when I'm ancient and I have a percentage. When I reach Immortal, I feel like I'm somewhat finished with the game. I don't know how to describe it, but there is some closure that is missing when you're not Immortal. I also have to admit, I'm not sure if it should be this way or not, but you get a lot more respect from peers when you reach Immortal. From your teammates, maybe not that much, but from friends and other people. There are a lot more people who are going to be more interested in your opinions because, well, you've kind of proved that it works to some capacity. There is still a lot of information that comes from Immortals, probably even high Immortals, that is contradictory or just straight up incorrect, but at least there is some credibility to what you say when you have reached Immortal. It is kind of a token that you have some idea what you're doing. You cannot be super bad and still be Immortal. That doesn't really work. The biggest pro, in my opinion, and I don't think a lot of people will agree with me on this one, is that you no longer have stars and percentage. I personally really disliked having those, because every single game, or every single day even, you're looking at your percentage and your stars. You're super aware about how your rank changes throughout the day. But here's the thing, your rank naturally fluctuates a bit throughout the week or the day or multiple matches. Unless you have a win rate like 80%, it's gonna go down some weeks and it's gonna go up some other days or even sessions. So I think focusing on your stars and percentages, whether you do it intentionally or just subconsciously, is a bit damaging. I really dislike the feeling of seeing my percentage disappear after playing 8 games a day or something. Having no stars and no percentage is pretty liberating. Like, I can play for 2 weeks without looking at my MMR or my stars and not even consider that at all. Just try to play my best every game. That being said, if you reach above and get a bit higher, you're gonna get a leaderboard rank, which might be even worse, but I haven't gotten there yet, so I'm not sure. Another pro that I'm completely sure of, but I feel like a lot of people will disagree on, is that your games are a lot higher quality. I've noticed that people in Immortal generally are better. I know it's a crazy idea, but truly I feel like each game feels a lot more serious. And surely there are some people who are even higher ranked that feel like my games are clown fiestas. But honestly, I feel like every single rank I've climbed have improved the game's quality. As you know, how ELO should work, how it's supposed to make the games. I feel like when you reach Immortal or even High Divine, most people are pretty serious. Even if there are some veterans who have dropped or aren't that serious about the game and just play for fun, they are still pretty good. There aren't gonna be people in Immortal who are unintentionally bad, I think, in general. Of course, this also means you get harder enemies, so while you might not understand what the enemies are doing, it might feel like the games are a lot less fun, since it's harder for you than it was before. But for some people that might be a pro as well. Also, this might not be relevant to most people, but personally it matters a lot to me, and that is you can now kind of do coaching and content without feeling this rank guilt. If you look at people like Purge and Quixotics, you can notice that they have quite small MMR, but they're still able to do Dota full time in different ways. Of course, I feel like, especially with Purge, their MMR is actually a lot higher, they just don't play ranked. But as a general concept, when you start to reach Immortal in these higher ranks, you can kind of lean into it a bit more. You can make more of your life Dota related in a way. Suddenly Dota becomes a skill that can actually be kind of beneficial to other people, which to me matters a lot. Those were all the pros I could think of. If you have any more pros, you can list them in the comments, maybe give motivation to other people. But let's talk about the bad part, the negative, the dark side of Immortal, the cons. Now, first and foremost, I think this is the biggest factor that most people probably consider as well, but yeah, it's time. You need to dedicate a lot of time to reaching Immortal. And I know there might be some people who say, oh no, you don't even need to play that much, you can play 1-2 games a week and climb if you just have good win rate. That is true, but no matter how you look at it, you will need to put in a lot of time. If you want to have a high win rate, you need to put in a lot of time to improve your gameplay as well. So any way you look at it, it's gonna take a lot of time. Even with like edge cases like Grubby, for example, he has spent tens of thousands of hours on other games, related games, so the time is somewhere. However you look at it, it's gonna be somewhere. No matter how you do it, it's gonna take a couple of thousand hours. You can of course be more and less effective, and I'll talk about that now. The second con is that you need to put in effort. And I know that might sound like easy, like of course I'm putting in the effort, but really it's really hard to put in the effort you actually need to improve, especially if you want to improve fast. It is really mentally draining to spend a lot of time doing replay analysis, looking at pros. For some people that might come naturally, but for me personally, like when I'm tired at night and just want to play some games, having the discipline to look at some replays, writing down what I'm doing wrong, writing down what the pros are doing right, that's pretty hard, honestly. It requires some discipline. A lot of people do this kind of work, a lot of people do replay analysis, look at the pros or put in effort in some kind of way, but they don't really want to talk about it, they don't really show it, and they try to make it seem super easy, like saying like, oh, if you just pick stunners support, you're gonna reach Immortal. If you just do blah blah blah, you're gonna reach Immortal. It's never that clear. There's always a lot of depth to it, in my experience. And of course, once you've done it, it seems a lot easier. But whoever achieves it has spent a lot of time and effort to succeed. The third con, which I didn't even think about when I reached Immortal, but has affected me a lot, is that you can't play ranked with anyone under Divine. This is actually a pretty big one if you have a lot of friends who are below Divine. Suddenly you can't play ranked anymore, and most people want to play ranked if they are serious about Dota. Suddenly the people you can play and party queue with goes from like 50% of Dota's player base to 1%, or maybe 5% including Divine. Next one is a bit more related to real life. You will hit low points when climbing to Immortal, especially if you fully commit your ego and yourself to improving and climbing, which I suggest you do. It really hurts when you're putting in a lot of work, putting in a lot of effort, and then after a week of playing, you have dropped 300 MMR or whatever. You've gone from Divine 2 to Ancient, and you feel like it's all worthless and you're never gonna reach Immortal. No matter how you look at it, you're never gonna have a straight curve up to Immortal. You can have it straight over time, but looking at shorter time frames, the time frames that your mind and mentality look at, it's gonna be bad sometimes. You're gonna have low points, that's for sure. And the final negative of climbing to Immortal actually matters a lot more when you reach Immortal, and that is you lose a sense of purpose, because you have no more percentages or a clear goal to climb for. Suddenly you're only playing for MMR, really. And of course, if you want to go pro, if you want to climb high, then of course that matters a lot. But in general, I feel personally like my motivation for Dota dropped a lot when I hit Immortal. I finally hit that goal, and now if I win 10 matches, nothing's really gonna change. Of course, the percentages and stars are all superficial as well, doesn't really matter. But for some reason it was still a shock when I started playing in Immortal games with my Immortal rank and I didn't have any clear goal. At least in Europe, aiming for leaderboard rank takes a long time. Like, I think it's at least above 7k MMR right now, which is a lot. Like, for me personally, that's gonna take at least a year if I dedicate myself to it, before I see any changes, before I really can tick anything off my box. In conclusion, I see a lot of negativity around spending a lot of time climbing. I think people who are the most dissatisfied with their decision to climb, to improve, to focus a lot on climbing in Dota are the most vocal. I can truly say I enjoyed my journey and I would definitely do it again if I had a chance. I wholeheartedly recommend focusing on climbing as much as possible to anyone who can find joy in that, who can actually enjoy it and see past or mute the toxicity. I will admit I was nearly broken a couple of times, usually when I was playing really bad and received a lot of negative feedbacks from teammates, but in the end I do not regret the journey at all. And with that being said, good luck in your pubs. Bye bye.